like us to do, because I am certainly satisfied that we've met our obligations under international humanitarian law. I'm not satisfied, and I have said that in the strongest terms, with the behaviour of the Israeli government in relation to aid, in relation to the treatment of prisoners, and in relation to expansion and violence on the West Bank particularly. I have also conveyed that and taken action in relation to that.
Sorry, Alice.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask specifically about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, linking the last two questions that we have. Obviously, reports that hundreds of people have been killed trying to access aid, and including recently aid workers as well. I know you have said at other committees that you, of course, don't support the approach of the foundation, but can you tell us more about how we've been raising those concerns with both the Americans and the Israeli government? And also, are you concerned that it will set a precedent for how aid could be delivered in other contexts, for example in Sudan, if it becomes semi-militarised? So 2 questions on the specifics and wider implications about what that model might mean for the future.
Well, in a way, this goes to slide 2 that is in front of you. And what that infographic shows is that there are 443,000 pallets of aid at the borders. Shelter, medicine, water, sanitation items. Over 136,000 pallets are still in Egypt. More than 130,000 pallets in Jordan. In excess of 120,000 pallets in Ashdod, and a further 505,000 pallets in the West Bank. Nearly 3,000 trucks waiting for dispatch. We are in disagreement with the Israeli governments about why those trucks are still waiting at borders. We believe that those trucks should have gone in, and we believe in the last ceasefire we saw the sorts of volumes that are required in relation to aid and distribution. We disagree with the new system, which is why we continue to support the UN system, and why I spoke to Tom Fletcher once again to give him my support this week. We have got medical aid getting in as the UK, but the issue around malnourishment and starvation is reprehensible, as I have said, and we are in disagreement. And I raised this issue with the Israeli Foreign Minister again just a few days ago.
And are you worried it might set a precedent for the future?
Well, it mustn't set a precedent. Yeah. It must not set a precedent. This is out with of global norms and rules that we all signed up to after the Second World War. And that's why this is so egregious and so unconscionable.
It is a staggering situation that we're in, Foreign Secretary. Are you in negotiations with the Trade Secretary of State about potential further trade sanctions that we could do? Because I don't know what is going to stop these Israeli actions, and is trade sanctions on the table?
Well, I said that we said in the statement that we co-authored, the leader's statement and the statement around aid with foreign ministers, that we would continue to look at further actions. And so, yes, I continue to look at further actions in this area, to do everything we can to press towards better aid distribution, less violence and no expansion in the West Bank, and I will do all that I can continue to do. I had hoped, I have to say, that by now we would have a ceasefire. And we haven't got a ceasefire.
I agree.
And I am very conscious that parliamentarians are going into recess in lots of Western democracies. So this is a time for acute vigilance as to what is happening.
Here, here. James, you done? David Taylor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you, Foreign Secretary. Turning to Syria now, there's a bit better news there, in the sense that we've seen the fall of a brutal dictator, much joy amongst people in this country, including our vibrant Syrian community. But of course, many, many challenges, as you know, not least the ongoing worries around sectarian violence flaring up in different places, and also the fact that 90% of the country are in poverty. I wondered if you could talk us through some of the steps that you've been taking, the visit that you did recently, how you're pushing for an inclusive government going forward, the work you've been doing around sanction reform, and also the humanitarian aid or the development aid situation there in terms of UK ODA in a context where, of course, the priority is Gaza, Sudan and Ukraine. Like what more can we be doing to support the Syrian people going forward?
Well, thank you very much for the question. Well, I was very privileged to visit Damascus on the 5th of July and to be the first Foreign Secretary to visit after 14 years in the country. The poverty line, and that 90% of Syrians are living below the poverty lines, did strike me. And the desperate state of the Syrian economy was also very striking. I spent time with civil society and NGOs when I was in Syria, not just meeting al-Shara and the Syrian government, and I do believe that it's hugely important, and I pressed al-Shara on this, that there has to be an inclusive political transition. There has to be accountability and a path to justice for victims of the Assad regime. And civil society did feel, and it would be, I have to make that clear, they did put to me concerns about that inclusive nature and about the nature of that accountability, which I had put to al-Shara. We are, of course, wanting to support the Syrian economy and the Syrian people at this time, wanting to encourage the government towards greater inclusivity. So I was very pleased to be there. But episodes of brutal violence involving Alawite and Druze communities are very, very concerning. And we will be redoubling our efforts, so working alongside other partners. And I spoke to the United States about this very recently. Supporting Syria in their counter-terrorism efforts at this time is also very, very important, because safety is something I left concerned about.
Thank you. And can I ask, just to follow up on that, a concern that some Syrians in the UK wanted me to raise, which is ultimately more of a matter for the Home Office, but I wondered if you had a view, is that there has been the news that we're going to stop pausing asylum claims, which is very welcome. Germany has offered people who don't yet have their status settled the opportunity to go back to Syria to visit family, to help with efforts to rebuild the country without removing their right to return back to Germany if they feel like they can't build themselves a future. Is that something that the UK can potentially look at for those that, even though the pause has been lifted, there's going to be a number of Syrians in the UK who are still going to be waiting many months to get a final decision? In that period, could they be offered the opportunity to go back to visit Syria, to visit loved ones, to help rebuild, but not have their sort of right to return to the UK removed? Is that something the government could look at?
Well, what I saw from meeting with the President, the Foreign Minister and his team is a desire for peace, a desire for stability, and he made the commitment to me to remain to be inclusive. So I stand by the decisions that have been made by the Home Secretary in relation to those claiming asylum from Syria. I think that is the right thing to do. I'm not familiar with the German decision, but that may be in relation to those who are not in the asylum system but have actually got German citizenship, which is slightly different. But I do think the right assessment has been made at this time by the Home Office, but of course we've got to keep it under review because it's a very fragile situation.
Thank you, Foreign Secretary. No.
Thank you, Foreign Secretary.
Who is it, do you think, that loses out most from the UK's ODA cuts?
In what sense?
Distributionally. We are taking a huge sum of money that was, and it will no longer be. So who are the losers in that distribution?
we will still be the 6th biggest spender in development. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, I've said that there will be an equality impact assessment done, and that is what will tell me those that might be affected, and of course I can act on the back of that.
And do you have any early concerns around that's stemming out of that work? Around particular groups, women and girls, for example, particular countries, anything that's leapt out at you so far in that work?
Well, we are committed to the multilateral system, so there will be decisions made bilaterally where we will be withdrawing. But I do think it's important when we think about development to recognise that what we can do at this time is also grow the amount of technical skills we're supporting countries with. We want to play a big role on the multinationals on which we're on the board. We can do a lot around finance, particularly. So there's lots of ways that we can continue to play a role, and we've got to be better coordinated across the Western family at a time when I listed the countries who are also making changes to their development aid. So we've got to work together with others so that we're each playing a part, but we will still be the 6th biggest spender, so we will have a significant role to play.
Foreign Secretary, I was with representatives from the British Virgin Islands yesterday, and this committee did a report into small island developing states, and we keep a keen interest on them and also our overseas territories as a whole. One of the frustrations that they have is, whilst they know the answers to the problems that they're facing, they don't have a platform like the UK does on the World Bank, for example, on one of the, you mentioned a lot of the big multilateral organisations. Is there discussions that are ongoing that the UK could, whilst not give up our seat, maybe give a platform more to some of these countries? Canada does it very well. I wonder if that's a way that we could use our influence that doesn't have cost to share power that we have the privilege of having with some of the countries that we look to support.
Well, we obviously do a lot with small island developing states. They are the lion's share, in fact, of the Commonwealth,
100%.
and we have sought to be alongside them, particularly on their big concerns about climate finance. It was why I met with my good friend Mia Motley. She's also been here in London particularly, but I also recall work in this area when I went to Chogam in Samoa. That's a very interesting suggestion, and I will look at it.
Thank you. I would say advocating is something we should continue doing, but actually giving over the platform on some occasions is a very, very powerful statement. Over to Sam.
Can I just ask a question, actually picking up on Noah's? And Foreign Secretary, I also stood on a manifesto that didn't commit to cutting aid, by the way. And one of the things that I think the British taxpayer probably wants to know is what is the human impact of it in terms of how many minefields won't be cleared, in terms of what will be the spread of infectious disease, how many girls won't go to school, how many livelihoods programmes from women-headed households will be cut. And I wonder if we could do more to explain to people what the impact of UK aid cuts are going to be, notwithstanding, and I respect all of the efforts that you're doing to mitigate that. Because Noah asked you about the impact, I just wonder if you would be willing to sort of commit to giving a better impact assessment to people so that we can properly understand the impact of these cuts.
Well, an impact assessment, as I said, will be done, and so the committee will be able to scrutinise those areas in the months ahead. But I do want to push back slightly. It's economic growth that lifts people out of poverty. That's what lifts people out of poverty. That's what's lifted, I think it's just under 1 million people out of poverty in China. It's what's lifted people out of poverty in India. And actually, surely the journey is for countries to transition out of development aid. So that's the first thing.
It's also preventing people from getting into poverty in the first place.
But it's economic growth that delivers that. It's jobs that deliver that. That's what African leaders say they want to me. They want jobs for their community. And we are very committed still to humanitarian aid. We will still be a big humanitarian aid partner. We will still play a massive role in the multilateral system. I announced a decision on Gavi. We are hosting the Global Fund with South Africa. But I do want to say that it's economic growth that delivers for people. We haven't talked about the work of BII and private investment that also delivers opportunities for people and will continue over the months ahead. And I also stand by the fact that actually keeping people safe, defensively, and hard power delivers for people and keeps people alive. So there will be an equality impact assessment. Of course, I accept that we have stepped down, or we will be spending less money over the years ahead, but we've made a commitment to get back to higher spending. We will still be the 6th biggest global spender, and we do need to reform the system, and I've set out how I think we should do that, and Baroness Chapman's been before you and also set that out on a couple of occasions.
And just quickly on the actual cuts to the FCDO budget as well. The Foreign Affairs Committee was told that you're expected to reduce headcount by 15 to 25% in the next 4 years. How much do you forecast these redundancies are going to cost, and will they come from the FCDO budget allocation?
Well, we got a transformation fund of 216 million to help us change the department. We got a zero-based allocation at the spending review. Now, that is in the end about ensuring that we have the right capabilities over this next period. And I want capabilities around tech. I want better economic capability. We actually lost quite a lot of development capability, and that's why we advertised for 200 development experts to come into the department. We've got to have the right capabilities. And I did take the view that the department was quite top-heavy. We have a lot of director generals, we've got a lot of directors in the department, and I was concerned that there were good middle-ranking civil servants who, at the moment, are subject to a promotion freeze. And sometimes you've got to free up people at the top of the organisation who are paid a little bit more so that those in the middle can move up and be paid more alongside the decisions that we're hoping to make about capability particularly. So that's what we're trying to achieve on the 2030 programme, and I'm confident we will achieve it. And it's informed also by the reviews that I asked to be undertook when I came into the job to inform the sorts of capabilities that we need over this next period.
And talk about capabilities, what do you think the impact will be specifically on development expertise within the FCDO?
Well,
Of course, has already taken a hit
I've said,
in the merger.
We're increasing development expertise. We've just advertised for 200 jobs to get in experts. They're coming into the department as we speak. So we're increasing development expertise